Welcome back to A People's Guide to Publishing. I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing and Distribution. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 25 years.
I'm Ellie Blue. I'm the editorial and marketing director here at Microcosm. We are an independent mid-list publisher based in Portland, Oregon. We have 14 employees, over 650 titles in print with 20 to 40 new books per year, and we distribute thousands of titles from other publishers.
We started this podcast so that we can share what we've learned with newer publishers so that you can learn from our mistakes.
Or maybe you just want to understand the publishing industry.
This week, we are going to talk about the most important role of a publisher behind increasing the value of an author's intellectual property.
So the second most important role of the publisher.
Well, I guess the first important building block to that, which is expanding the scope of who reads books. Because, it's easy to make an author's work more valuable just by putting it in stores. But most of the time, it's their fan base that are the ones buying it, and it's their megaphone that's driving them to buy it,
We don't all want to be competing for the same 2 million readers.
Correct.
So how do you do that? How do you expand who is going to find, read, and love your book?
So one of the greater flukes of Microcosm in its infancy, and probably one of our greatest accomplishments, is that we literally, and to this day still do this, get people to read books that don't read books and don't see themselves as readers.
That's true.
Because of the kind of books that we publish.
And yeah, I definitely hear people say that about our graphic novels, about our zines, about some of our full-length books also. Mm-hmm. They're I never read books, but I read this whole book and I loved it.
Mm-hmm. And they're proud of that. They it's not how they see themselves, because books have failed them, because they read some boring books, and then can I ever relate with that? And then they read some books that are not boring, and they're like, wow, this book was so cool.
Yeah, and I feel part of it is the content of the books, but part of it is the marketing and the framing and the development too.
Yeah.
We're not publishing books with literary pretensions.
And
there's no gatekeeping. You can tell exactly what's in the tin.
And honestly, the most important thing is making the book not look intimidating. You want it to look fun, easily digestible. You want it to feel like it reads quickly.
Yeah.
You want it to read well. You a smaller trim size, a shorter page count, all those things help. But the most important thing is almost that it's a page turner. Mm-hmm. And that was I don't know, I never really thought about it this way, that this is the thing, and it's because of my background that I wasn't someone that was catered to, and I didn't read anything between age 12 and age 17, and so because of that, and I feel that was a failing of the world around me. That was a failing of what was offered to me. That was a failing of publishing. And so my response to that was to make stuff that I would want to read, that connected the value proposition of the work, that made history or any subject as interesting as it was.
Yeah. Wasn't the book that got you back into reading the CIA's greatest hits?
That was a major one along the way. There were some other books, but that's a good one too, right? And that's a perfect example. I reconnected with the author recently, and just by sending some, fan mail, which is always a good idea when you enjoy an author's work. And I basically said this just majorly re-envisioned how I see and saw books, because it's one page illustration that single panel cartoon summarizes, and then one page that very, very simple summary of an event in the CIA's history, and it leaves you being like, whoa, that is so cool and unbelievable. I now know which ones are most interesting to me, and I want to read more about them. And then, the publisher, Odonian Press, in the 90s, was smart enough to be like, oh, and here's our catalog in the back with 30 other similar books, all 96 pages, all, mass market trim size. So they they're easy, they're impulsive, and that was a major influence for me at a young age, and probably is still. And a lot of that publisher has since passed, and the books kind of got scattered to the wilds. But, the concept is more important today than I would say it was 30 years ago.
Gotta bring people in.
And that's, and I feel like that's just not something that publishers think about. They really think about, how to fight over shelf space, how to compete with people that have billions of dollars to get shelf space. They compete for the same heavy users' money to buy their books. They're not thinking about, how do I bring in people to start reading, as adults? Because it's there's definitely lots of that for children, but...
Yeah.
So, put that in your cooker and smoke it. Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub.
On Twitter at Microcosm.
On Facebook at Microcosm Publishing.
On Instagram at Microcosm_pub.
And here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.